In the Battle Cats, there are several ways to enhance the performance of your cats in battle, whether it be through a simple level up or acquiring treasures. One of the better ways to improve your units is through a true form or talents. These give your cats new abilities and stats which can completely transform a terrible cat into a viable one. But some cats aren't as fortunate, and their true forms or talents hardly help them at all. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in this video. But before we begin, let's talk about what would define a bad talent or true form. First off is the general improvement. If a cat was already good, then there isn't much room for improvement in the true form. Does this mean that it's a bad true form though? No! But if a cat needs an improvement, but the true form fails to provide it, then it'd be considered a bad true form. And the same logic applies to talents. Keep in mind that it needs to make sense. Like for example, Axe Cat's true form Dark Cat isn't good, but he's literally the third cat you unlock, so it's not supposed to be that great. The second thing is the cost. True forms can require cat fruit, behemoth stones, or awakening stages, while talents require NP to be unlocked. If a talent or true form requires you to use up scarce items like a lot of NP or yellow behemoth stones for a true form or talent that isn't worth it, then it'd be considered a bad talent or true form. Ideally, a good true form would be a cheap one requiring accessible items in exchange for a true form that has major improvements. A bad true form would be one that is expensive, with scarce items in exchange for a true form that doesn't give many relevant improvements to a cat in need of some. Once again, the same logic would apply for talents. Without further ado, here are the worst true forms and talents in the Battle Cats, starting off with the worst true forms. Harbinger Cat is the true form of Catelite and is easily one of the worst true forms in the game. But to understand, let's go over why. First things first, Catelite was already pretty bad. He has a 20% chance to freeze black enemies for 2 seconds, so he gets completely outclassed by Bomber Cat, who is cheaper and can perma-freeze black enemies a lot better. He also suffers from having single target, which makes it more difficult to freeze your desired target. The only thing that makes him stand out is his range of 350, which even then is pretty lackluster. Catelite's stats are also really terrible, with him only having 6,000 HP, which means he probably won't survive a hit. Clearly there's a lot of room for improvement, however this true form barely improves anything. The true form, Harbinger Cat, gives Catelite the Behemoth Slayer ability and the Strong ability. Let's talk about the Strong ability first. Harbinger Cat doesn't improve upon any stats. Hell, it even keeps the single target. So it's still working with these poor stats from the previous form, and as a result, the Strong ability doesn't add much, since even with the health and attack boost from the ability, Harbinger Cat isn't living more than like 2 hits from black enemies. The Behemoth Slayer ability is where things start to get really stupid. This is because Harbinger Cat's main ability is the freeze ability, and paired with Behemoth Slayer you would think that it's supposed to freeze black behemoth enemies, but all 3 black behemoth enemies have immunity to freeze, which makes this cat literally useless against them. The price of this true form is also completely ungodly for what you're getting from it. It costs you 20 purple behemoth stones, 15 green behemoth stones, and 1 yellow behemoth stone. Grinding for all these materials just to get 2 abilities that are completely worthless is a complete scam, which is why it's one of the worst true forms. Cat God the Golden is the true form of Cat God the Awesome, and Cat God the Awesome is already a very clanky unit. His range works really weird, but if he lands an attack, he's actually not that bad. He can be used to regain some ground in difficult levels like Protein Cartel, or straight up cheese some stages like Lady in the Clink and Mineral Treatment. Aside from those couple stages, he doesn't really work well in most levels since he'll usually get sniped or just straight up die after landing one successful attack. The true form Cat God the Golden gives barely any improvements to the stats, with there only being a teeny tiny boost of 225 HP. The only other addition in this true form is the double bounty ability, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Since most of the time you're going to be using Cat God to regain control, his strongest attack won't land on the target worth a lot of money. And even if it does, he only deals 50,000 damage, which isn't small, but he attacks every 37 seconds, so by the time he was going to land another attack, he's probably already dead. So if that double bounty ability were to work, you would have to weaken that enemy before Cat God attacks. But the cost is where stuff gets absolutely diabolical. This true form costs 1 gold cat root, which is one of the most grueling items to obtain. To spend such a valuable item on a true form which hardly improves anything is a complete scam, and thus is one of the worst true forms. Gorgeous Groovin Cat is the true form of Awa Adori Cat, who is also just a faster version of Boogie Cat. But since he only has 8 speed, he can get easily replaced by Craze Cat or Craze Tank Cat. The true form gives him Behemoth Slayer, which is pretty stupid in my opinion. Gorgeous Groovin Cat is a meat shield, so the HP and especially the attack boost from the Behemoth Slayer ability is completely useless. The only notable thing gained from the Behemoth Slayer ability is the 8% chance to dodge behemoth enemies. This makes it so that Gorgeous Groovin Cat acts as a sort of anti-behemoth meat shield, but this 8% chance to dodge is way too low to be reliable. And in most behemoth stages there are also other enemies besides the behemoth enemies, so that dodge is almost never gonna proc. For a terrible addition, the cost is a complete rip-off, costing you 20 red behemoth stones, 15 green behemoth stones, and 1 yellow behemoth stone, which takes quite a bit of grinding for a true form that adds a practically useless ability. The final true form I'm going to be talking about in this video is Cat Base Ultra, which is the true form of Cat Base Jr. This cat is already really bad, having a 100% chance to create a level 3 wave attack, which doesn't sound too bad until you see his absolutely horrendous stats, specifically his 238 DPS. This absolutely abysmal DPS makes him get outclassed by Crazy Gross Cat in every single way, which makes it so that he has practically no use outside of EOC or early SOL. So there's clearly a ton of room for improvement here, and the true form Cat Base Ultra increases his wave level to level 4, gives him 10 extra range, and increases his DPS from 238 to 816, which is still less than Crazy Gross Cat. Even in the true form, he gets completely outperformed by Crazy Gross Cat, and the cost is a complete robbery, costing you 5 epic cat fruit and 1 purple cat fruit seed. With 5 epic cat fruit, you could get yourself 5 super rare true forms, but spending all that for this piece of garbage makes it easily one of, if not the worst true form in the Battle Cats. Well, we've just taken a look at the worst true forms, but now let's talk about some of the worst talents in the game. Some of these talents even make the unit worse in some cases. The first of these terrible talents I'm going to be talking about is the knockback talent for Chill Cat. Chill Cat is an anti-alien unit that deals massive damage against alien enemies. He's pretty spammable and can deal some amazing DPS if there's many of him on the field, which isn't too hard to accomplish with his pretty quick 4.5 second cooldown. He excels when taking down bulkier enemies like Cyberhorn or Mesocosmos Cyclone, but that's because they accumulate and form a stack, which is accomplished by holding the enemy in place to allow the Chill Cats to stack up easier. The knockback talent completely disrupts this process by pushing back the tanky enemy and making it harder to stack up Chill Cats. This makes it so that the tanky enemy actually takes longer to kill with the knockback talent than without it. The knockback talent also severely lowers the DPS output, since some Chill Cats might miss their attack from another Chill Cat knocking back the enemy. Alien stages also usually come with a backliner like Klee1 or Spacefish Jones, as well as just some enemies that can outrange Chill Cat like Ursa Major or Project A. If an enemy is getting constantly knocked back, your stack of Chill Cats could get into the range of one of these enemies and get absolutely destroyed. Even if you want this talent, there's even less reason to get it because of the existence of Racket Cat, who can also knock back alien enemies and does a better job at it. Overall, this talent is a complete waste of NP, since it actually makes Chill Cat perform worse in most scenarios. The infamous Soul Strike Lil Eraser is definitely one of the worst talents. First of all, we gotta check out what Lil Eraser does. Lil Eraser is a meat shield that's mostly used in 4-star restrictions. Since he's a meat shield, you always want him to be in the front lines to take the damage. The Soul Strike ability prevents Lil Eraser from moving forward if there's a zombie corpse in front of him. This means that your attackers will advance undefended and get hit by the enemies. The Soul Strike ability is usually used to kill zombie corpses before they revive, but Lil Eraser does hardly any damage, so even with this talent, the zombie corpses won't even be killed in time before they revive. There's also literally no reason to get this talent, since Lil Eraser also gets the Dodge Zombies talent, which makes him usable in zombie stages and is way better at dealing with the zombies than the Soul Strike talent. This talent literally makes Lil Eraser perform worse, and for a cost of 75 NP, is a complete robbery. Ganesha is a really powerful Uber, so it's really unfortunate that some players will never get to experience his fullest potential by unlocking this talent. But to understand the reason for this talent limiting Ganesha's potential, let's talk about what makes Ganesha so good. Ganesha has an amazing LD attack that reaches up to 725 range, which can snipe some longer range enemies like Master A or Kamel. He also has a really good DPS of 3.6k, which reaches 7.2k when strengthened. However, just like any other LD unit, he has a blind spot. If enemies get into his blind spot, it's difficult to push them back into Ganesha's range, so usually Ganesha will be knocked back to reposition himself to attack the enemies. Damage knockbacks aren't very expendable on him since he only has 4 after activating his strength and ability. But ability knockbacks are very valuable since you can allow Ganesha to reposition without taking a significant portion of his health. Most enemies that have the knockback ability are close range enemies like Trolley Blogger, JJ Jackrabbit, or Gokuraku. And this plays a big role in why this talent is terrible. Without this talent, close range knockback enemies allow Ganesha to reposition, which is great for him. But with the knockback immunity talent, Ganesha is forced to sit there and take hits until he gets damage knocked back, which takes a decent 1/5 chunk of his HP. The only advantage this talent has is making Ganesha good against Mr. Mole, but this does not justify the whopping 100 NP that this talent costs, which is why it's one of the worst talents. Catelite is an anti-alien meat shield who also deals somewhat decent damage against them too. The damage is one of the reasons why the barrier breaker talent is bad, because Catelite usually deals enough damage to break most barriers, like for example Spacefish Jones or Kid Tappa. And even if Catelite can't break the barrier, there's plenty other options like Kitty of Liberty, Lil Macho Legs, or even just the Breaker Blast Cannon. The chance to break barriers at max talent level is only 10%, which gives you even more of a reason to use these cats over the barrier breaker talent. But the biggest reason why this talent is bad is because it makes certain stages a lot more difficult, and this is because of one enemy. Ultra Baba. Ultra Baba has incredibly high barrier health, which can be exploited to cheese stages by stacking wave units on it. A famous example is Haunted Genome, which abuses the Ultra Baba in the beginning to stack up dark lasers. You usually stall the Ultra Baba with Catelite, but with the barrier breaker ability it would completely ruin the cheese strategy, forcing you to play the stage normally, which is a lot more difficult than the cheese strategy. In summary, the barrier breaker talent has no use for breaking barriers because of the many other options, and can also screw up cheese strategies involving Ultra Baba, as well as costing 95 NP in total, which is a complete waste. Well, there you have it. That's some of the worst talents and true forms in the Battle Cats. I might make a second video like this covering the worst Ultra forms and Ultra talents. If you have any ideas for what to include in that video, let me know in the comments below. And if you've watched this far, then congratulations. You've just unlocked the talent of being a real one. So comment talented real one, and as always, I will heart your comment. I would also like to give a major thanks to the channel members. Thank you Bushman, Cruel Crackus, Jimmy, Garlic Gamer, Adark, Mr. Dan, Hasi Vivi, Bander, Garden147, Kokole, D. Joey Wang, Door Animates, Kendall Printup, M. Dark, and Roseplay Gaming for being channel members. And a special thanks to Jimmy for actually suggesting this video idea. So shout out to him. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.